Is Tucker Carlson going to be the Republican nominee in 2028? So much of the Republican primary talk has been centered around two people, right? JD Vance, the vice president, and Marco Rubio. JD Vance probably will run. Marco Rubio, maybe he'll run, although that would present an interesting dynamic because they're both working in the Trump White House after all. I don't think Trump would endorse just yet. I think he would wait to see who wins between them and then endorse that person. So I think that would be a really interesting dynamic. But regardless, whether it's Vance and Rubio or just Vance or just Rubio, these folks have a shot at winning for sure because they'll have the Trump backing and the GOP is certainly still Trump's party. But what do these folks not have? What does JD Vance not have? What does Marco Rubio not have? They don't have charisma, right? They don't have that X factor that Donald Trump has, as much as we don't like to admit it. Donald Trump is able to captivate the Republican base in a way that these other folks can't. And with JD Vance, he's trying as best as he can to be personable, and he has his lame stories and his fake laughs, but it's just not really working for him. Marco Rubio, too, is kind of a boring guy, right? Like, he's seen as this, like, elder statesman now that he's the 55-year-old Secretary of State. But it wasn't long ago when he was seen as more of a goofy character who was wearing these, like, heels on his shoes because Trump was calling him Little Marco, and Chris Christie was making a fool out of him on the debate stage because Rubio was just repeating his talking points and kind of came across as an empty suit. So it's quite possible that with these charisma gaps that JD Vance and Marco Rubio have, that someone else could stand out among them and among the Republican pack largely, and that person could absolutely be Tucker Carlson because he does have an X factor that JD Vance and Marco Rubio do not have. He's also willing to say dumber things than they are, and he has these weird quirks and things that will get people talking about him, and the Republican base is also very much used to watching him on TV all these years, especially when he was a Fox News host. If the Republican base expects its leader to entertain them, in addition to or even instead of governing like Donald Trump has for all these years, well, then Tucker Carlson is going to do a much better job at that than someone like a JD Vance or a Marco Rubio, who may be able to accomplish more, but they're certainly going to be more boring.
First, really quick, a word from our sponsor. Most of my work is not just what happens on camera. It's the prep, the calls, meeting with my team, figuring out what ideas do we want to produce. And this is why the Plod Note Pro has been so useful for me. They're one of our sponsors. The Plod Note Pro is about the size of a credit card. It's thin enough to slide into a wallet. It attaches magnetically to the back of my phone, and I can use it for meetings, calls, interviews, brainstorming. If I want to talk through an idea without stopping to type notes as I go, I just hit record. I have my conversation. Plod will transcribe the audio. It'll separate the speakers, give me a summary of the points that were most important, and even turn that into action items of what do I have to do. I can also search everything later with the Ask Plod feature. And Plod is also built around enterprise-level privacy and security standards. Check it out. Go to plod.ai/Pakman and use the code Pakman for 10% off all products. The link is in the description. Now back to the video.
Another reason why I think this is a real possibility is that Trump's approval rating has been declining. It's been getting worse and worse over time. It's in the 30s now, and for good reason. Imagine a Tucker Carlson coming into a Republican primary where most of the candidates have to defend Trump. Remember, they have to walk this tightrope and act like they're hearing out the concerns of the American people while at the same time maintaining loyalty to Trump. Tucker doesn't really have to do that because he's taking a different path. So he can say things like, yeah, the economy, it wasn't great under Biden, but it hasn't been so great under Trump either. And he can do the same populist shtick that Trump did in 2016 and pretend like he's calling out both sides and say that, yeah, even though I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and I come from a life of luxury and privilege, I understand the needs of working class people. He can do a very similar thing to what Trump did back in 2016. And if you're JD Vance and Marco Rubio, you just can't do that. Same thing applies to the Epstein files, right? Tucker Carlson can criticize Trump's handling of the Epstein files in a way that Marco Rubio and Donald Trump cannot. And then there's the war thing, because Tucker can be this anti-war voice in a way where JD Vance can partially do it, but Marco Rubio absolutely cannot do it because he's been one of the architects of these foreign policy engagements that Donald Trump has gotten us in. So what's going to ultimately be the message that wins out in this Republican primary, and who is it going to come from? Is it going to come from someone who is TV trained and says that we don't want more war and we're tired of business as usual, we need change? Or is that voice going to be from someone like a Rubio or a Vance who says, we're just going to kind of keep business as usual, and by the way, I'm kind of boring? So that's kind of the dilemma that is going on here. That's the choice that Republicans have to make. And in 2016, when they had that choice in front of them, they went with the TV trained guy who promised change and promised that he was going to have a plan for America's struggles, even though those plans never manifested. But they went with that guy and they stuck with him a couple more times. And also, if you take a look at the timeline, it also suggests that Tucker is at the very least like weighing this as a possibility, because he used to be a lot more cozy with Trump, but he's really gone his own way ever since the Iran war started. Tucker said that he was going to leave the Republican Party, and then he was flirting with doing his own thing. He recently was in Maine at his house with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. They did this like little summit thing to lay the foundation for the future of the right-wing movement as they see it. So I put all this together to suggest that Tucker Carlson could absolutely be laying the groundwork for a run in 2028, and that absolutely would be a wild card that not everyone sees coming, but makes a lot of sense when you think about it, honestly. I think that JD Vance will certainly run. I think Marco Rubio could run. But Tucker Carlson, would he shake things up and join this primary as well? And could he be the next president of the United States? That is a terrifying thing to think of, but as, of course, is Donald Trump as president.